S23 Ultra from Samsung. So I think Samsung has a small problem whenever it comes to the S24. It's going to have the Snapdragon 8 Generation 3. I've been seeing some preliminary things on it. Of course, everyone's saying how it's going to be having more of an emphasis on AI and machine learning, but I have concerns about how they're actually going to do that. It's cool because the chip itself is capable of performing more AI and machine learning tasks, but the thing is, it just doesn't have it in the DNA when it comes to Samsung. There's not a whole lot that they're doing like what we're getting on the Google Pixel front. Also, the other concern I have is this phone is just so good. The S23 Ultra has been such a fantastic phone, best Samsung phone I think they've ever made. It's a tough act to follow, and such a tough act that, well, the S24 is going to have some good incentives, and it's going to have a lot of stuff on day one that's going to convince people to move over, because it's going to be hard pressed to get people to take this out of their hands. I know year-over-year upgrades aren't the way that they make a lot of money, but for those of you watching my videos, of course, we're all tech enthusiasts, right? We all like to have the latest and greatest, but the S22 series really left a lot to be desired. It had terrible battery life, had heat issues and things like that, and I don't want to sound any alarms. I don't want to be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be terrible. But based off of some other phones that I have right now that I can't disclose, which have a Snapdragon 8 Generation 3, I have concerns about how they're going to handle it with throttling, with heat management and things like that, because, yeah, it seems like it really kind of wants to get away from the phone a little bit, and I've got one that's a flagship level phone, Snapdragon 8 Generation 3, and it is throttling the heck out of it. But then I have another one that's not throttling it, and it's getting hot, even with the built-in fan. So it's really interesting. And it's going to be interesting how this plays out once the Snapdragon 8 Generation 3 and the S24 series get here, because there's so many good phones out there. And the OnePlus 12 is coming in hot as well. We've already seen some leaked stuff on that. I made a video about that 2 days ago. Samsung is going to have more competition than ever. And we've had so many good phones this last year. The Think phone, the Razer phones that we got, even the Motorola Edge, the one for this year, the 2023 model. I've heard good things about that. The Pixel phones, they're on top of their game right now. So more competitive landscape than ever, more options than ever. And Samsung is going to have to try and find a way to capitalize on that, because here's the thing. At first I was like, don't buy the S23, the S22 is fine, you don't need to do a year-over-year upgrade. But then the S23 series fixed so many things. Like the S22, I could barely get 3 hours and 45 minutes screen on time. And now with the S23, I was getting 6 to 7. That's good. Or with the S23 Ultra, I've gotten 8, 9, up to 10 hours of screen on time. I could barely get 4.5 to 5 out of my S22 Ultra. And it would heat up, and it would throttle. So there's a lot of things that they fixed. Like the Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 was like that lightning in a bottle. Qualcomm finally made it. Samsung and everybody else finally caught it and did really, really good things with it. So it gave us a fantastic phone. That's a hard act to follow. So not only is it a hard act to follow, but we know how things go with chips. Like every single chip that comes out, there's always these challenges that they have to face. They're always trying to push the envelope. And really, the Snapdragon 8 Generation 2 is kind of like a refined Snapdragon 8 Generation 1, which the 8 Generation 1 had good power, but it had problems with throttling. They had to throttle because it was pushing too much heat and too much power. So the S23 Ultra, such a good phone. The S23 series, period, such a good phone. And I know we're talking about, I've heard them talking about they're going to a flat screen and changing some things up, dialing it back from the 10 times optical to a 5 times optical, which I don't actually have a lot of heartburn about. I actually think it might be good, because the 10 times is just too much. Like, it's cool to have 10 times if you want to zoom in to 50 times, 80 times, 100 times, but you don't have a good intermediary zoom. And that's what you need. And that's what we've got with the iPhone. That's what we've got with the Google Pixel phones. 5 times optical zoom really seems to be the sweet spot, because you can get kind of like that DSLR portrait kind of style shots where you can zoom in, get all that detail, but it's not too far. 10 times is too far for that. And a lot of people are saying, well, we should stick with the 10 times, and I kind of disagree with that. So I think there's a lot of promise there, but it's going to be hard to follow up from the S23 series phones because they've just been so darn good. And there's been so many good, compelling deals, which I think they still are on sale. But you could get during the Black Friday sales the S23 Ultra for $899 on Best Buy, or you could get it for still the normal price, $1199 on Samsung. But they were giving up to $800 enhanced trade-in value, 25% off for using the app, and giving you a free, well, not free, but $49 Galaxy Buds 2, which are actually really good earbuds. So they've had really compelling options going on there. So the S24 is going to have to show up. It's going to have to show up ready to go, ready to work on day one, and they're going to have this camera dialed in. Like the S23, there were a couple of things that didn't have completely dialed in once they moved over to this 200 megapixel sensor. I thought the 108 was better, and I thought by the time the S22 series got there, it was really dialed in. So we'll see how they go with that. But the camera is going to have to be dialed in, and they're really going to have to show something for it with this AI and machine learning, not just talking points. And with Google, it's very apparent, completely in their DNA, in their history. They've been doing AI for a long time. Other phones, it's really not so apparent in a lot of meaningful ways. They haven't really been able to demonstrate that, right? So that's one of the big things that they're like bolstering with this phone. That's one of the things that's going to be a talking point. And I think they're calling it like the first AI phone or something. I don't know. They patented some term the other day. I can't remember what it was. Ice Universe was talking about it. There's going to be a lot of emphasis. And if it doesn't deliver, what's the point in the phone? Just keep the S23 or keep the S22 if you're happy with it, right? And these phones are supported for so long now. And also, Samsung's no longer king of the hill. They have been king of the hill for the longest time with the 4 years of operating system updates, 5 years of security patches, and now they've been surpassed by Google, which rightfully so. Google should be number one doing this because why? They make Android. If Google's making Android and they're making the Pixel phones, why is some other brand having longer support than they are? It just doesn't make any sense. So now Google Pixel 8, Pixel 8 Pro, 7 years of support. 4 years of operating system updates, 5 years of security patches. So I think we're going to see them bump that up. Even if it's 5 across the board, I really hope they don't go to 7. I don't really think 7 is really attainable in any meaningful metric. Sure, they may say they support it that long, but what is that support going to mean 7 years later? Like, it'll still work. What's the battery going to look like 7 years later? What's the Tensor 3 going to look like 7 years later? We're just at the forefront of this AI revolution with what we're doing with our phones, and nobody's really been able to capture that in a super meaningful way, because even I get a lot of people who are not convinced with the Google phones, which I talk to them all the time, because yes, the speech recognition, the voice to text, the call assistant, the computational photography, the voice translation on the phone. There's so many things that AI is doing that Google is doing, but what is Samsung doing about AI? So I'm really curious to see what we get from Samsung in terms of this whole AI push, and they have to do it in a meaningful way. But I like One UI. I like the phone. We're going to, of course, have the S Pen. It would be interesting to think of having an S24 Ultra that has a flat screen. Maybe we'll like it. I don't know. I've got 2 other flagship phones I'm testing out right now that have flat screens, and it's kind of nice. So I'm curious. I'm interested. I'm concerned. But we'll find out soon enough, because supposedly the launch date is going to be the middle of January, and we're already going to have the OnePlus 12 launch date is going to be happening in China here in just a few days. So I think we're going to see an early launch on that too. I'd seen something about that leaked on Twitter as well. So looks like the smartphone race of 2024 is going to start right as soon as 2024 gets here. And I'm here for it. Hopefully you are as well. Also, hopefully you're here for the updates. I've spent a considerable amount of money retooling my audio and a different camera. And I'll let you guys guess what it is in the comments, what I'm recording with right now. I'm using all sorts of extra cool stuff. Maybe we'll talk about it more during the live stream next time we do it. But I wanted to share this stuff with you. I am listening. I'm actively trying. I have been using like a $300 microphone with my iPhone. Like this right here, if I can grab it, it is a Shure microphone, condenser microphone apparatus that plugs into the iPhone. I've been using this. I was using another one before that. So I just spent like another $350 redoing my audio again. So hopefully it's better. Hopefully you'll like it. I'm going to fine tune it some more. I'm sure it'll get better than this. But first video shot with a new camera, with the new microphone. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really want to get some feedback on it. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, we'll talk about it there. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and the subscribe button and little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.